All right, everybody, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going deep on the big PlayStation Network outage from a couple weeks ago. You know, the one wiped out online gaming for like a whole day.
Yeah, pretty much took everyone by surprise, huh?
Total shocker. I know, I was all set for some serious weekend gaming, and bam, suddenly I'm staring at the void, you know, just a blank loading screen of despair.
I hear you. I think a lot of folks were feeling pretty lost that weekend. Definitely puts things into perspective, though, doesn't it? Like how much we rely on these always online services for, not just gaming, but like everything these days.
It really does. Okay, so for anyone who somehow missed this whole thing, the outage hit like literally everyone globally for a full 24 hours.
Oof, yeah, that's rough.
Total blackout. Sony finally coughed up an explanation, calling it an operational issue with network services. Now, I don't know about you, but operational issue kind of sounds like, like they're not really telling us much.
Yeah, I mean, operational issue could mean a whole lot of things, couldn't it? Companies often use these kind of vague terms. Sometimes it's because they're worried about legal stuff, like, if they admit to a specific problem, it could open them up to lawsuits.
So it's like the digital version of nothing to see here, folks, move along.
Pretty much. Sometimes, though, they honestly might not have all the answers yet and don't want to say the wrong thing,
Right.
But yeah, either way, that lack of clear communication, super frustrating for users.
Absolutely. Especially when you're sitting there with like zero updates and the rumor mill on social media is going bonkers. Man, Twitter was on fire. Some folks were demanding a free game. Others wanted like a whole month of PlayStation Plus. 5 days felt a little bit like a slap in the face, honestly, especially for people who rely on gaming for more than just casual fun, you know?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, for a lot of people, gaming is like a social thing or a way to de-stress, even a way to connect with friends and family. So to have that suddenly cut off can be jarring for sure. And it puts companies in a tough spot, doesn't it? Stay silent and people get angry but say something wrong, and it could be even worse later on.
Yeah, it's a real dilemma. But is silence really the best approach, though? It seems like just being honest, even if it's just saying, hey, we're working on it, we'll keep you posted, would go a long way, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Sony was probably trying to like avoid a panic or something, but that radio silence just made the whole thing way more frustrating. And, this whole situation, it's not just about a few days of lost gaming time. It makes you think about like our dependence on online services in general, and you know how vulnerable we are.
Okay, so you're saying this is about more than just missing out on the latest whatever game release.
Way more. Like imagine if this happened to our banking system or the power grid. Suddenly it's not just about entertainment, right? It's about essential services going dark. This PlayStation thing, it's like a glimpse into a potentially much bigger problem.
Wow. Okay, that puts things into perspective. Suddenly 5 days of PlayStation Plus doesn't seem like such a big deal.
Right. It makes you think about like, are we prepared for when these systems fail? Because it's not a matter of if, but when, right?
So are we all just sleepwalking into a digital apocalypse? I'm getting flashbacks to that time I couldn't even order a pizza because the internet was down.
Uh-huh. Maybe not a full-blown apocalypse, but yeah, it's a wake-up call for sure. And the good news is there are definitely things we can do to be more prepared. It is kind of unsettling, isn't it? Like we're so used to having everything right there at our fingertips, movies, banking, shopping, whatever it is. But we don't really stop to think about what happens when it all just stops working.
It's like we've built this whole world on digital sand, right? Everything looks super solid and stable until suddenly, whoop, there's a wave of outages and it all comes crashing down.
Haha, that's a great way to put it. And it's so true. We really need to start thinking about internet access more like electricity or water,
Yeah.
Like those are essential utilities. So what happens if the internet goes out? What's our backup plan? How long can we actually function without it?
Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to get the bigger picture now. This isn't just about, gamers missing out on their Fortnite fix for a couple days. This is a way bigger deal than that, like a potential vulnerability that affects pretty much every aspect of our lives.
Exactly. We rely on the internet for everything now. Work, communication, healthcare, even just getting groceries or ordering a ride. What happens when those systems fail? It's not just an inconvenience anymore.
Yeah, it could be seriously disruptive. Makes you think about those prepper people, you know, stocking up on canned goods and building bunkers. Maybe they're not so crazy after all.
Haha. Well, I don't know about bunkers, but there's definitely some wisdom in being prepared. Even if you don't go full survivalist, there are practical things you can do to be ready for the next outage.
Okay, so we talked about diversifying services and being ready to go offline for a bit.
Mhm.
What else can we do? Like, do we need to become hackers or something? Learn to, keep the lights on when the grid goes down?
Haha. Hacking skills might come in handy, I guess. But there's a much simpler solution. We need to push for better infrastructure, demand more reliability and redundancy from these companies providing these services.
So we need to speak up and be like, hey, the internet isn't a luxury anymore. It's like electricity or water. It's essential, and it needs to be treated that way.
Exactly. We need to hold these companies accountable. The more we demand better service, the more likely they are to actually invest in making it happen.
That makes sense. But it still feels kind of daunting, doesn't it? Like, what can one person really do to change how these giant corporations operate?
Well, you'd be surprised. Never underestimate the power of collective action. When enough people raise their voices, companies start to listen. Social media campaigns, online petitions, even just contacting your elected officials, it all adds up.
Okay, so we need to channel our inner digital activist. But let's circle back to Sony for a sec. Do we have any idea what actually caused this whole operational issue thing? Like, could it have been prevented?
It's really hard to say without more info from Sony, But you got to remember, any network that big is going to be complex and it's going to have vulnerabilities. Could have been a software glitch, a hardware problem, even just human error. Who knows?
So even with the best tech and security in place, sometimes things just go wrong.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the reality of our digital world. These systems are so intricate, they're always going to be potential points of failure.
Like a giant digital Jenga tower, right? You never know which block is going to bring the whole thing down. But okay, even if we can't prevent every outage, it sounds like there's a lot we can do to be ready for them and make sure they don't completely derail our lives.
Absolutely, and that starts with awareness, right? Recognizing how much we depend on these systems and understanding what could happen if they fail.
Okay, so awareness, preparation, collective action. Those are our digital survival tools for the 21st century. But this whole conversation has raised a really interesting question for me. If the internet is as essential as electricity or water, shouldn't it be regulated like a utility?
Ooh, that's a great question. And it's a debate that's happening right now. Should internet access be considered a public good? What would it look like to regulate it like a utility? A lot of implications there.
Yeah, those are some big questions. Probably can't answer them all today. But it's clear that this PlayStation thing has sparked a conversation that goes way beyond gaming. This is about the future of our digital lives and how we deal with this increasingly interconnected world we live in.
Totally agree. And it's a conversation we definitely need to keep having.
So we've talked about, what we can do as individuals to be more prepared, but what about the companies? Like, what's their responsibility when these outages happen? They can't just, toss us a 5-day PlayStation Plus extension and call it good.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely a growing expectation that companies need to be more upfront and accountable when these things happen. But, they're also operating in this world where, like, one wrong word could land them in court or cost them a ton of money. So it's tough for them, too, finding that balance between, being honest and protecting themselves.
Yeah, it's like they're stuck between a rock and a hard drive. If they don't say anything, everyone assumes the worst.
Yeah.
But if they say too much, they could end up in a legal mess.
Yeah.
So I guess it's no surprise that we end up with these vague operational issue explanations.
Yeah, for sure. But honestly, I think the most important thing is that they communicate something,
Yeah.
even if they don't have all the answers right away, just acknowledging the problem, giving people regular updates, showing that they actually care about how this is affecting people. I mean, that goes a long way.
So even if they're still trying to figure things out behind the scenes, don't leave us hanging in the dark.
Exactly. Transparency builds trust even when things go wrong. And let's be real, trust is kind of hard to come by these days, especially in the digital world.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap of what we've learned from this PlayStation Network deep dive. First, even a minor outage can show us just how much we depend on these online services and how fragile that dependence can be. Second, companies really got to step up their communication game. No more hiding behind vague excuses. And finally, it's up to us, the users, to think about how we can be more resilient in a world where the internet isn't always a sure thing.
Great summary. Yeah, it's a complex issue, for sure. No easy answers.
Mm-hmm.
But the more we talk about it, the better prepared we'll all be.
Well, I know I'm suddenly feeling the urge to download some books and maps just in case. Maybe even brush up on my Morse code.
Haha, never hurts to have a backup plan, right?
So for everyone listening, we want to hear from you. How did this outage change how you think about online services? What are you doing to get ready for the next one? Share your thoughts in the comments and be sure to check out the show notes for some resources on internet resilience and digital detox strategies. And as always, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the topics that matter most. Until next time, stay curious.